Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So, this is a time for a spiritual gathering in my meditation that I do. And some of you guys kind of know the story or some of it about how the meditation I do, the Saj Marg Natural Path Meditation, became the Heartfulness cult with this clown named Dodgy. I don't even want to call it a cult because it's too stupid and too incompetent. It's a wannabe cult. It's like an embarrassing attempt at a cult, which is, you know, but you have the same phenomenon that we have with the Trump and the Trumpers. And so it's really up for me. I'm aware of it this in my job that I do here and also in my, my spiritual life that people, this ability for people to go into denial and support somebody. And again, it's one thing to support somebody who's done a bad thing, but it's your brother, it's your, family member, it's your good friend, and they've done something bad and you're there for them because everybody does bad shit. It's one thing to like admit that what the person did, but still love them, still support them to the best of their ability. I mean, that's really being a higher level person where you can support somebody when they've done something really bad, right? Especially if the person is, and really only if the person is realizing they've done something bad, and whether it's coming out of the fact that they got caught, which is the lowest thing, or if it's coming out of their own sense of guilt and shame, they're looking for redemption. Like if somebody's looking for redemption, if they're being a dick about it and still denying it, then you really can't support them. Like that's the wrong thing to do. You can't support them in their denial. But if they've owned up to what they've done, then it's kind of your duty to support people who are done something wrong. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the cult of personality, someone like Trump and somebody like Dodgy, who has support from a bunch of people. And even though they find out one bad thing after another and the person just keeps on displaying themselves, they just won't wake up. They just won't, they won't do anything about it. And they just can't accept it. And it's hard for me to understand. I mean, it's really hard for me to understand. And so I want to contrast these two stories a little bit before we get into the other Trump stuff, right? So we all know about the overwhelming evidence that Trump is a piece of shit. Like he says it and does it and he acts it, he lives it, and he's not hiding it. And, he lies about it, but in a way that, like, it makes it even more, believable that he is a piece of shit. Like, it's not, his lies are not effective. But to these group of people that are so desperate and need somebody to agree with them and support their worldview, they've ignored all these things and pushed them back. And, we all know about that, right? And, the biggest thing is Epstein. Like Epstein is so important to a lot of these people, the most sort of fringe Trump, right-wing fringe kind of, almost being truthers. I mean, right-wing truthers, the Cubies and these other people that, the Pizzagate and all these things mattered so much to them. And a lot of these people are Christian and they want to protect children and moms and women and, these things and, for predators, and they want to see justice. I mean, more than anything else, they want to see people in this club that Trump belongs to be held accountable, like all the things that we know. And so these people, the drop dead thing for them is Epstein. Now, in the Sajmarg meditation coming out of the Indian culture, Dodgy has committed a lot of fraud, a lot of scams. He had a pharmacy, he had a series of pharmacies in America, and one of his sons became a CEO of a company that they were creating for online pharmaceutical equipment, getting your pharmaceuticals from delivery, right, based on, the sort of Amazon model. And, it was sort of taken off as a business, and they forged a bunch of documents. At least that's what it says, according to this subpoena from the FCC, which I've talked about, that his son has been indicted in America for getting $170 million of investment money based in faulty information they gave to their investors. So that's like hanging out there. There's the Brighter Mind scam where they say that kids can smell colors and they can rearrange their senses based in, a bullshit scam that's been already exposed multiple times in different forms in India, but still they're able to, get people to buy into it. Goofy fucking shit. Like they have people in the audience rubbing their bellies and patting their heads But they said that it doesn't work for you as an adult. Only kids can do it because kids will play along with it, right? They think it's kind of like a game and they'll peek through the blindfold, all this bullshit. And I've talked about many of these things before. But in the spiritual culture and the guru-dom culture in India, there's nothing worse than blaspheming your spiritual master. I mean, it's, the equivalent to a reverend or priest or somebody or the Pope smearing Jesus, right? Or, his the guy that, whatever was his, teacher or guru. I mean, more relevant. It's like when the disciples turned on Jesus. But it's even more so in India. They have such respect for elders in their country, elders, their parents, and you just don't slam your parents. You just don't talk back to them. I mean, there's, and again, it's the culture is being modernized. But traditionally, you just don't do that. Like you just, one of the things that Daji always says is respected elders. Like he says that when he, begins to speak, or used to. He's gotten older himself, but like elders and respecting the elders is such a big thing. Respecting your teachers. Charji would talk about how American kids will call their teacher by a first name, like shit that's the Indian culture can't even understand, right? Hey, teach, like he would say something like that, which of course, that's dated. But, America, we don't have much respect for authority. And the master culture, and I've always had problems with authority. I don't know if it's a problem with authority. I don't know if it's a problem with the trust, but it's also that I learn better on my own. Like I learn better on doing my own thing and research than I do being taught. So I can be taught, but it's not, it's just my learning style, whatever. But I certainly had trouble with the guru culture, the idea of a master. I mean, all this stuff that people would say, calling somebody master has so many negative connotations in the American experience, right? But I would never have done what Daji's done. Like, so Daji's taken his master, his birthday celebration right now, and he's basically said all kinds of negative shit, canceled his birthday, erased all of his great works, and then is just making a mockery of the whole thing. And the only credibility he has, because he's a dumbass with a fucking not very many good qualities. He was spiritual when I knew him before this all happened. Like he was into Sajmarg and he was good at it. But, he was never as good as Charji. Charji was just this epic person with all these abilities and just somebody functioning at a high level. And Daji would never live up to what Charji had accomplished as a person or as a spiritual person. He didn't have greatness in him. Like Daji has no greatness in him. But the way he's treated him is just like, it's a complete deal breaker and a no-no in the Indian culture. And yet these people can't walk away from it. They just fucking can't. It's, I've looked at this with Trump and like just how much evidence you need. Trump saying you could shoot someone in the face at Fifth Avenue. And it's a phenomena that I'm trying to understand. But I mean, it's so hard to understand. It makes people look so stupid and shitty that they won't bail on stuff. And sometimes they actually know the person's a piece of shit, which I know they do know about Daji. And I do know the Trumpers on some level know that Trump's a piece of shit, but they won't admit it because they don't want to give up on whatever they're doing, right? And, I've been somebody who's been able to deal with things like that because, the truth is the truth. And you can't, when you deny it, it hurts you in every possible way, most importantly spiritually, but every other way as well. And when God is showing you something and you refuse to see it, it's a fucked up thing to do. Like when God keeps on shoving something in your face and your soul does, or your experience, and you refuse to see it, and you keep on, locked into something, that's where all disastrous things happen. When you're being warned about something, you're being shown something, and you just deny reality, you deny God, what God is saying to you. You ignore it, and you just go do what you're going to do anyway. I mean, something that Trump does and the Trumpers do, and something that Daji does and his followers do. And, disaster comes from when you ignore God. And that's what's happening here. This is about ignoring the reality we see in front of us. And, of course, politicians and all these people, they ignore God's warnings all the time. Left, right, corporations, all of them. The people that run the system, they're being warned like the rest of us. You can see the fucking warnings. You can see where we're headed. And they just refuse to fucking acknowledge it. So anyways, I just want to start the video off here. I'm going to add this to my Journey series and also to the voiceovers I'm doing on the Gratefullness meditation channel. So for those of you who don't know, let me just say this real quick because there's something funny that happened. I realized I wasn't receiving this energy, this transmission, and I wasn't having the good experiences like I was having before. So I realized I needed to go do something else and just connect directly to the source, and that was really helpful. And then there are some people who started Heartfulness because of me, and I was like, I had to tell them what I had discovered, and they also struggled, and so they started doing this thing called Gratefulness meditation, which is just the old Sajmark system with a different name and videos I put together. And it's been really doing well, and I've been really grateful for it. And the gatherings and the meditations have gotten better and better, and my condition has gotten better and better, and I'm really psyched about it. The whole thing's been great, right? And I don't like to pay attention to what Daji's doing because I know he's a piece of shit, and I talk about this all the time. There's no reason to go down the rabbit hole. You're never going to expose anything that isn't, and again, these things can't be. You can bring it into the light, but people won't refuse to see them, and it's not my job to do that. But I did check up on to see how he, he pretended to channel Babaji, the second master, and there's 4 masters, and he got rid of the Babaji's and Charji's birthday gatherings. And now he's having goofy fucking weird shit that's money-making scams and things at this big ashram. But it's not working because nobody likes the guy. He's not interesting. He can't compel people to, whatever. It's a failure. But he had this gathering, and it's supposed to be about celebrating Charji's life. Like in the master-guru relationship, there's this element of celebrating the master. Like Jesus' disciples, they all wrote scripture about Jesus. They had their account of Jesus' teachings. And this is them celebrating Jesus' great work, right? And as a disciple, you want to, somebody's helped you evolve spiritually, and you love them, and you feel grateful for them, a teacher, and you want to promote some of their, you want to show the world how great they are. And that's, these birthday gatherings are supposed to be about that, celebrating Charji's works. And Daji scrubbed all of Charji's literature. They're not republishing it. Charji has more talks and books and things and DVDs and, all these videos and things. Then all the, now Daji has a lot of videos because of YouTube, but, Charji produced all this amazing work. And Daji wants to be a best-selling author like a Deepak Chopra, and he sucks. His books suck. They're childish. He can't even write his own books. They're all ghostwritten. Like he's just a fucking putz and a moron, right? And so, so they're celebrating this birthday. They don't really even mention Charji at all. They make it a one-day gathering instead of a 3-day gathering. And they talk about trees, and they release goofy books in different languages that are just dodgy shit and nothing to do with Charji. And then they rolled out this guy to talk about diabetes for like an hour and a half, which, like people who are familiar with the system, you just, like, no one wants to sit there and listen to somebody talk about diabetes. It's supposed to be about a spiritual gathering. And so, after a while, it just gets stupid. And he's, blatantly stupid. And anybody who was familiar with the gatherings and the system before and knew Charji, and many of these people said they loved Charji, and they would weep when they have to leave him, when he would, visit a country, and when he leave, or they'd visit the ashram and they had to leave, they would weep, and they would say how much it hurts and how much they loved him and all these things. And this guy's just throwing them under the fucking bus, and they're all just, just kowtowing to him and allowing him to do it. And it's like despicable. It's like so hard to look at. But anyways, so there it is. Let me wrap this one up here, and I'll get to my regular stuff on my regular channel, and then other things on, the Journey series and the Gratefulness meditation channel. Okay, so today is Friday, the 25th of July, and 2025. And I already made this video yesterday. This video won't be up till tomorrow on Saturday. And I made the rest of the video, and a bunch of stuff came in. And I didn't want to tack it all on the back because it's not just about Trump. Some Israel shit's going on with Palestine. Trump just did an impromptu press conference, and I'll cover that in my next video. He was asked if he'd pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said, I haven't thought about that at all. I'm not thinking about that. That's not in my mind. There's nothing about that. And he's like, but I could if I wanted to. And then he was asked about Hamas, and he goes, I knew they'd break a deal when they got down to just a few hostages, because once they give up those hostages, they're screwed. And like now and Israel's going bullshit and bombing the shit out of Palestine. And, he tried to humiliate Jerome Powell and got punked like by his own disinformation. The Fed chair. I mean, it's just imploding, right? So I'm going to cover all that stuff in my next video. And I've got to, I got to like organize it, today, and then I'll start making that video for Sunday. But this video you're listening to on Saturday. And the rest of the video, like I said, has already been made. So I'm just putting this up front because it goes with the rest of this stuff. So this happened with Jeffrey Epstein.
You're best friends with a pedophile for 10 years, one time, and the world never forgets it.
Trump's longtime relationship with Jeffrey Epstein now casting a shadow over his presidency as new details just keep coming to light. A resurfaced video of Epstein from a 2010 deposition raising more questions.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Okay, the first part, I'll go back and find that other. I'm going to find the whole video, the first part of this clip. Let's just go with this because I hadn't watched it here.
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
But
okay, so that means he did. Like, that means criminal activity was taken. Because if the answer was no, he could just say it. No, Donald Trump and I did not socialize with young girls. Now, he was maybe saying this to everything. Maybe he was taking the 5th on everything. Not the 5th, not just the 5th, but the 6th and the 14th Amendments. He needs 3 amendments to talk about his relationship with Donald Trump. The first part of the video is asked if he, ever socialized with Donald Trump. I'll find that clip and I'll show you that next. But, if he's guilty, he's guilty. And you don't need the 5th if you're not guilty of something, if you didn't commit a crime. So, it's the right. The 5th Amendment is you have the right not to incriminate yourself. So if they're asking you a question in which you're going to incriminate yourself, you would say, I take the 5th, because you can't answer the question because it would mean that you would be incriminating yourself. So, you don't need any of this stuff, which I talk about in the video here. You don't need it because Donald Trump was friends with him for 20 fucking years. 20 years he was friends with him. Like he was, and close friends. So this is, Donald Trump is fucking, and I don't know why they're burning him right now, and I get into that a little bit here. But the mainstream media is all about all of a sudden the Epstein stuff. And like they're getting all these clips from it, all this stuff, and it's one of those things where there's something new every day, which means they want to keep the story going. Something significant every day. And they know that the people who are Trumpers and people who are Jeffrey Epstein people, which is both liberals and conservatives and lots of people, and certainly the Trumpers are, watching this stuff. And Donald Trump can't stop it. Like, it's just a flood of stuff. And like I say later on, nothing's ever going to happen. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's impeached or jailed over this. That would be, like, stunning. And if it is, it's because they're just doing it. Like that's their goal, to just completely demolish Trump and his presidency. But right now, it's not going well for him. Like it's not, I don't know what that means. It's not going to have real, implications towards his, like freedom or his presidency. He'll still be president, but he's going to be a weakened one because of this. And I don't know how long this will go, but it seems like they're just going to have this go forever. And there's so much information out there that apparently that's, some people have seen and others haven't. And, I don't know that much about the Epstein thing because I knew that you'd never get the truth. I don't dive deep into these things because, by the time you do it, the story moves on and nobody ever gets the truth. Like it's just too much disinformation comes out. All the fucking dumbasses and disinformation agents and dumb fucks are out there are just pushing stuff that isn't true, right? And then it all, it just muddies the waters. And they never release the truth and they never admit to anything. That's the whole thing. They let you see the truth, but they don't, the truth doesn't exist in their mindset, like in their world. Like it's out there and everybody knows it, but they pretend it doesn't. Like Trump is pretending this isn't happening. Like that's his thing. I don't know. I'm not thinking about that at all. I don't know. He's thinking about every minute, right? Because he knows that he's done some shit. Like he sexually abused kids with Jeffrey Epstein. They're pedo brothers, right? They're perv bros. And so this is, let me show you the beginning of this clip here.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever...
Then he asks the thing about minors, which he takes the fifth for. So, but Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were very close. He talked about being friends for 15 years, which I get into here in this video. And so, it's there for everyone to see. And this is what let's get into this other stuff here because I cover this here. Okay, great meme here. Ghislaine Maxwell, 1961, next week or so. Really funny meme. Well done. So I want to start off with this Trump thing, but I want to say something about, my wife and I went for a walk, and she was telling me there's this theory out there that Peter Thiel, this fucking creepy guy, whatever he was, Elon Musk's partner in one of those, like PayPal or something, I think, whatever, this tech guy, is running J.D. Vance. Like J.D. Vance is his guy. And that he's making all this happen so that J.D. Vance will take over and he can run the country. Peter Thiel has Trump gave him some whole big thing, right? Like he's in charge of some whole like huge thing. But I said to her, my wife, and this is something I should say regularly here. People will come up with a theory, right? So people will like, all right, they're trying to get rid of Trump. They're going to impeach Trump. And then J.D. Vance is going to take over. Then who would benefit from that? Who is most likely there to make that happen? And then they'll connect some bogus dots that make it sound like it's a good idea that this is going to happen. Not bogus dots, but things that make sense why Peter Thiel's the guy that's doing this or whatever. And it'll make sense to people and sound good, but it leaves out one very important fact, and this is a fucking fact, that they never get held accountable. Trump isn't going to be impeached. They're not going to impeach Trump over this. Trump isn't going to be removed from office. I mean, it's silly. Like this, because of Epstein, like nothing's going to happen. Now, first of all, if they release the files, well, let me just say this. Since I've been doing the truth stuff, and even before that, no one's ever been held accountable in any real way, right? 9/11, did we ever get to the bottom of that? No. The economic collapse, which was devastating, almost brought down the world economy, kind of did in different ways. Did we ever get to the bottom of that? No. Do we know what really caused COVID? No. No official, factual, this is what caused COVID and this is who was responsible. Pretty much everyone's saying that this came out of a lab that was in China, but what was connected to Fauci in America. And is anybody held accountable for that, right? 6 million deaths? No, right? And so the last time somebody was held accountable was Richard Nixon when I was a kid. The Watergate scandal went on for like eternity as far as I saw it because it seemed like it would never end. And, Nixon wasn't involved with the scandal itself. He was involved with the cover-up. And it was circumstantial evidence, but, there was testimony from key people. And Howard Dean went to jail. Not Howard Dean, whatever the Dean lawyer, whatever his first name was. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Don't need to know, right? A couple of people went to jail for a little bit, but they were like no names. And Richard Nixon was impeached. And then after that, nothing, right? In my entire life, Bill Clinton got caught banging an intern, an 18-year-old girl. Like, that's basically pedophilia there, 18 years old. Like, that's, she's, she's very, it's not illegal, but it's, certainly immoral. He's married to a wonderful woman in Hillary. And he banged her, creepy stuff, then lied about it, perjured himself, and said lied about it. And then what happened? He got impeached, but he still kept his presidency. And since then, it's been like we can do whatever the fuck we want and nobody really cares. That the people aren't going to riot. It didn't matter. Even the Republicans, as much as they hated him and Hillary, it was okay, right? And since that time, none of these things, all the things I've listed, Pizzagate, whatever it is, right wing, left wing, anything that Trump's done, any of the lawsuits against Trump, these many women coming forward saying Trump abused them in some way or another, all the criminal stuff Trump's done, all the Hunter Biden, all the stuff Biden did, all the corruption. And, sometimes the story comes out. It certainly comes out in the truth community, but it never fucking ends up with somebody going to jail or somebody being held accountable. I mean, Epstein is supposedly dead, so I guess something there, right? But then again, it's not like, it's still, everything's left up in the air. So if that's the case, if nobody is ever held accountable ever, and the president can't go to prison because of, this new Supreme Court ruling that the president has immunity from his own criminal behavior as president, like how the fuck is anybody ever going to be held accountable? And so the stuff in the Epstein files isn't criminal indictments. It's these people hung out with Epstein. And some of these girls who are victims say that this stuff happened, but it hasn't been tried. It hasn't been put out there in a way where people are judging whether the girls are telling the truth or whatever these people are. And so I don't think they're ever going to release shit. And if they do, it's going to be partial shit, but it's not going to be anything damaging let's talk about pretty much everyone believes, over 60% or more believe that JFK assassination was covered up. And nothing's happened because of that, right? So it's just the truth never comes out. If it does, like Operation Ajax, which is some foreign thing that happened in Iran, that was released well after, 63 years after it happened. Everyone who was involved in it is dead. Everyone who could be held accountable is dead. America itself took no responsibility, didn't apologize to Iran for the CIA's actions. The CIA, can't be held accountable because it was so long ago. These things. So nothing ever happens. And so there's nothing going to happen with Epstein. So whoever comes up with these theories, if you're basing it, they never give you resolution. They never give you any kind of resolution of what happened. So this Peter Thiel theory, it sounds good. But if you're basing it in Trump being impeached, then don't hold your breath. I'd be shocked. I said this before. For 4 years, when Biden was president and they were going after Trump, they were throwing everything at him. I said, when he's in jail, when he's in dead, come talk to me. Otherwise, I'm not paying attention to all this bullshit. When he actually has to pay out some huge lawsuit, come talk to me. When he's actually really bothered by something that's happened. Not some nickel and dime kind of thing. If he's really, if he can't run for president again, he's behind bars, he's disappeared. They stopped talking about him. Any of those things. He's their asset, so why are they going to get rid of him? Right? And I don't think they're going to get rid of him in 2 years. I don't think the Democrats are going to impeach him. I don't think it'll go through. Whatever. I don't think he might impeach him, and will he even step down? Whatever it is, right? When he's actually held accountable, and it's not going to be because of this Epstein thing. The most is going to happen is his base will maybe abandon him for a little bit. Maybe his base will shrink, whatever, I don't know, some small damage. But that doesn't even mean anything anymore. He's not running for anything. He's not, the people that are benefiting from Trump are still going to support him, the powers that be. And so, there's, to expect resolution or accountability, you're never going to get it. But I've said this before, God, there's a divine recording system. And nothing goes, you have to understand and believe in past lives and future lives. But nothing, nobody gets away with anything. Nobody gets away with shit, right? Everything is accounted for on the divine plan, and something will happen for all of these people you don't have to worry about. And you shouldn't worry about. Worry about yourself. Worry about your own fucking consequences. Worry about the shit that you're doing now to cause your own problems and things. Because that's really more important. If everybody worried about themselves, the world would be a better place. And not worried. Worried is a bad word. If everybody took responsibility, accountability, and was realistic about what they're doing and understand the damage. You know, I've talked about this when Tuesday Paul is screwing over Thursday Paul. You know, I decided not to plug in my hair clippers and my beard shaver. You know, and I knew that I would have to go do it later on. Like, so we do things all the time that hurt ourselves. Think about the number of times you do something that you're screwing over a future version of yourself, either in this life or in the next life. And so if people were aware of that, then that would be great. That would be, you know, that would be a step in the right direction. Everything else is bullshit. All right, so let me show you this here.
Meanwhile, in Washington, the House Oversight Committee will subpoena the DOJ to release all unredacted files pertaining to Epstein. The move comes after 3 Republicans on the Federal Law Enforcement Subcommittee joined Democrats in an 8-2 vote to approve the motion to compel the DOJ to release.
Okay, so think about that, right? Amazing that Jeffrey Epstein is bringing people together. It's bringing the Democrats and Republicans together. So Mike Johnson and Trump and all these people, you know, they're never going to be held accountable, but they can't kill the story either, right? And so, you know, there used to be public shame, for lack of a better word. Like, you would just walk around, and, you know, if you had like a real village and a real family, you know, these things would matter, right? You didn't want to bring shame on your family. You didn't want to do something to embarrass the family. But now it's like getting away with something is a badge of honor. And the people that matter to Trump, it's about getting away with it. The people that matter to all these people, it's about, oh, you got away with that, right? It's not about the fucking people that were angry at you or, you know, the fucking muggles, right? It's about all these people where, you know, it's like a challenge. Remember, Epstein's brother had covered this 2 videos ago. He said that Jeffrey was bragging about like some of the conversations he had with Trump, and he had asked Trump, "Why do you sleep with so many married women?" And then he asked the same question in front of Mark Epstein, his brother, and Trump said, "Because it's so wrong." Like, he was into stuff that was so wrong, right? It turned him on. It was like, you know, which again, the children thing and all that stuff, these pedos, but you know, they're not bound by any sense of shame. And I mean, these are sociopathic people that, you know, Trump doesn't give a shit what you know about him or whatever it is. You know, he just doesn't want to hear about it, right? He doesn't want to, you know, he wants to maybe silence this stuff around him. And he doesn't, you know, probably like what people are saying about him. He's very sensitive and thin-skinned in some ways. But, you know, he's not ever going to be too embarrassed to go out in public, even if it came out that he did these things to these young girls. And, of course, they can just deny it, right? I mean, even if he gets arrested and goes to jail, you can always deny things and never own up to it and always cast some doubt on it. And there'll always be some people who believe you. And so, you know, like, he's not going to be held accountable, but he can't make the story go away. But it really doesn't matter as much, right? If there was public shame, like, people would be like, you know, like they said to Nixon, you have to resign because your brand is so damaged and you're so, like, the American people are just so done with you. But Bill Clinton said, fuck you, I'm not doing that. And I talked about this a lot, how he just said, you know, it's like in the Matrix movie where the Smith character comes back from being killed. And he said, I know what I was supposed to do, but I just refused to do it. And that's what's happened here. These guys all know what they're supposed to do when you have a scandal of this nature. These scandals used to destroy people. You know, there's a guy named Gary Hart who was going to be the next, you know, president, Democratic guy, California guy. And he had an affair, and that was it. He was done. He just had an affair. But then Bill Clinton, years later, was like no big deal to get, you know, have weird sex with a fucking 18-year-old intern in the Oval Office, and he still kept his job. And so there's been a degradation of accountability and morality. And so it isn't just a matter of whether people know. You know, there has to be like some sort of trial, and even then that's, you know, I mean, that's questionable. Because Trump will always say these are corrupt judges, Democratic judges. This is being politicized, and, you know, they're just, I mean, it never ends, this, you know, being able to excuse yourself and squealing your way out of there, right? But in all that, the Democrats and Republicans are brought together here. You know, so like he's bringing people together here left and right.
release those files tied to Epstein. The subpoena would request the redaction of names of victims, and files would be reviewed internally by the committee and not released to the public. That's important.
Of course not. Yeah, of course not.
At the same time, the House Oversight Committee also formally subpoenaed convicted Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell yesterday. It orders Maxwell to sit for a deposition at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida on August 11th, citing, quote, immense public interest and scrutiny. The subpoena was signed off by Oversight Committee Chair James Comer. We know the Deputy Attorney General also wants to interview Maxwell as part of what DOJ is doing. So, Brendan Buck, let's bring you in here.
Come on, Brendan Buck.
Familiar with the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson, as we discussed last hour, sending the House home a little early to try to kick the can down the road. But it's sort of an example as to how at least part of the Republican Party is not going to let this go. We see some members of the GOP defy Johnson, defy Trump for voting for this measure. Give us your sense of the state of play.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen committees and certainly the floor be tied up in knots on a single issue like this. You have multiple committees that don't know what to do at this point because any amendment being offered by Democrats on this, they may lose votes. And I think it's important that one subpoena on DOJ was offered by a Democrat. Look, Joe knows this. When you're in the minority, you don't have a lot of opportunities to kind of shape the debate and what's going on. The House is a majoritarian institution. But Democrats have absolutely struck gold. Set aside the obviously.
Yeah, Democrats haven't been able to do shit because the Republicans have been completely in lockstep with Trump and each other. And so they've closed out the Democrats at every turn. But it was an 8-3 majority with 3 Republicans voting against it. And those 3 Republicans are probably shitting their pants because they know that this could come back to bite them in the ass, right? And so, this Jeffrey Epstein bringing people together left and right. Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the people who I think voted, if she's on this committee, she would have. And, she loves Trump, and Trump has talked about, he's just loved her. And, Trump is probably really hurt because he feels like, if these people really loved him, they would back him on this thing. He clearly is, facing embarrassment. But, this is about being a pedo. And the people are drawing a line here, regardless of whether it's fake or staged or politically motivated. Trump, there's things that they're not going to back him on, covering up for his pedo behaviors, his perv behaviors. They've done it in the past for some of these other things, but not with Epstein. And so, like I said, how does accountability manifest? The Democrats could impeach him over this, and I don't see that happening. Because, again, what kind of evidence do they have that he partook, that he was involved in the behaviors? Like, how are they going to get that out of the DOJ that's going to protect him? So, like I said, I doubt there'll be any accountability. I doubt that Trump was going to, that unless he has a health issue, he's going to serve out his full term. But, this is a fucking story that's noteworthy from the sense that it's bringing Democrats and Republicans together. And now the Epstein story is being talked about in mainstream media, albeit, not in a realistic way, but, it's happened. And like I said, there's no reason to even dive into it further because we have enough information about it. They're all fucking scumbags. They all know what's going on. They're all complicit. Either they're partaking in some of this shit or they're being paid off to look the other way or whatever it is. They're not, it's so gross. It's eyes wide shut shit over there. In fucking Capitol Hill, right? So today is still, 24th of July, Thursday. And I've already got my video up for tomorrow, so this is already 2 days ahead of time. So I'm going to, cover a few things. I want to move away from the Jeffrey Epstein, unless, it depends on how many new bombshell shit there is. Let's look at a few more things here.
The line of today's reporting is really interesting, not just because President Trump was asked last week if Pam Bondi notified him that he was in the files, and he denied it on July 15th, but also because the reporting today says that Bondi and Blanche gave the Wall Street Journal a statement about that meeting last Friday. That means that Bondi and Blanche understood that reporting was forthcoming from the Wall Street Journal about that May meeting when Todd Blanche took to X and said he was going to invite Ghislaine Maxwell to have a private conversation with him. If anything, this shows that they knew what was coming and were trying to deflect from it by not only filing those motions to unseal grand jury testimony, but then also devising a plan. Ooh, maybe if we meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, she'll tell us something, but something that doesn't implicate Donald Trump the way the files in our own possession could, or at least talk about him. Now, I want to be really clear, Alicia, with you and our viewers, just because somebody is mentioned in the files is not an indication.
They keep on saying that, right? Like, how many of these people were worried they might be in the file? Like, you know, if your name's in the files, you're fucked, at least to some degree. Like, you'll be the person that, oh, remember that person was an Epstein person. You're going to be an Epstein person because you're complicit in some way or another. You're guilty of something. Like, if you're hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein enough to where you're going to these islands and doing this shit, you're complicit about something. It might not be child trafficking, but it might be taking bribes from Mossad. It might be, you know, any number of things. Like, it's, you know, you're guilty of, unless you're mistakenly put in there. But any of these people, they're all guilty of stuff anyway. They're all fucking guilty, right?
Of any wrongdoing by them, much less something on which you could predicate a criminal investigation. I think it's really important to say that.
No, it's not. It's not at all. It's fucking not at all. You know, like, just no one, nobody listens, nobody hears that. You say it, but nobody hears it. Your name is out there, and people are like, you're on the fucking Epstein file, bro. Like, there's no walking that back, right? Like, you're diseased now. You're fucking toxic.
The breaking news just minutes ago right here on MSNBC is that Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book that contains a letter that bears Donald Trump's name is in the possession of the Epstein estate in Florida, and the estate lawyers would respond to a subpoena.
So that letter could be confirmed.
Congress could issue a subpoena to their attorneys at Patterson or at Troutman. Those are the two law firms. I know those attorneys. They would turn the book over immediately. Nobody would have to guess. There wouldn't need to be a lawsuit. There wouldn't have to wait to be discovery. You would immediately have the answers. You could flip to the page. Is there a letter? Is there not a letter? It's over.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California, member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Khanna, you have been the driving force in the House of Representatives to get the Epstein files released to the House.
All right, so, you know, there's that. I mean, it's something. It's like, you know, that letter's fucking embarrassing. But, you know, people have already, I was like, what letter? You know, like, it was like 4 days ago. Oh, yeah, that letter. You know, so, I mean, it's just, like I said, the way the news cycle moves on, the way that everything is, nobody's held accountable. And even if they are, you just have to wait it out. You know, I talked about this with Jimmy Kimmel. So all these people are being Me Too'd and woked. And Jimmy Kimmel could have been both. There's a lot of videos of his really depraved behavior when he was on that Man Show. You know, now he's a feminist and a liberal, but back then he was a pig. He's still a pig, but, you know, he's pretending he's a liberal. He's a pig in liberal clothing. But, you know, there was also him having blackface with Oprah and with Karl Malone, the basketball player, and very demeaning blackface, and the way he talked like Karl Malone did and all this stuff. And, you know, he said, fuck you, I'm going away for vacation for 3 months. And he had guest hosts. And again, this is a job where they're, you know, I've never gotten to the Stephen Colbert thing. It's just sitting up in my toolbar. The whole thing with Stephen Colbert, which is a big story. Like, people are sending me shit. I got a Corey Feldman video. 2 people have sent it to me that has Corey Feldman singing a song and bragging about how he got 5,000 views and he's used AI technology in a really weird way. It's a fucked up video. Like, I got things like that. I got one of the Island Boys is having a boxing match, and with 30 seconds left to go, it's like a tie, because some guy, he's fighting some old guy with one eye. And he quits. He just fucking quits. He says he smoked too much pot. He was getting tired. He only had to, like, last 30 more seconds, and he might have won. I mean, just crazy shit. I got all these things that I'm not even going to get to all of them, because this Trump thing and all the other things that are happening are sucking up so much oxygen I never get around to it. So I'll get to some, not any of those things, but I'll get to some of the other news things just to take some tabs down in a second here. But, you know, the thing is just, it just never, you know, with the news cycle being the way it is, you just can wait it out. just like Jimmy Kimmel did. He came back and he still has a job. And like I said, Stephen Colbert is losing his job in part because he's making half the money he used to. And he's the number one show, so you do the math, the other shows are losing money. His show was losing money. And Jimmy Kimmel, like, he was losing money now, but back then he almost got fired. I mean, he almost got Me Too'd, and he didn't because he just went away. And by the time he got back, everyone forgot about it. Case in point here.
There was no classified information, as I understand it.
There was no classified material that was shared.
No classified material was sent on this messaging thread.
There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information.
For months, the president and his top officials have maintained no classified information was shared when the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, discussed pending military strikes in Yemen in a Signal group chat back in March that had inadvertently included a reporter from The Atlantic. But tonight, sources tell CNN a Pentagon...
Who left because he's too bored.
...on Watchdog has gotten evidence that the military plans that Hegseth shared were in fact taken from a U.S. Central Command document that was marked classified at the time. It was specifically marked secret/no foreign, meaning no foreigners should see it. Despite the new reporting, the Pentagon is maintaining tonight, quote, the Signal narrative is so old and worn out, it's starting to resemble Joe Biden's mental state.
That's the new thing. It's so worn out. The thing is, like, Pete Hegseth should have been fired when this happened. It was embarrassing. And it was just showed he was incompetent. Trump ain't firing anybody who's loyal to him unless Trump needs to throw someone under the bus. Maybe that's why this is coming up. It doesn't matter. And it is old. People forgot about it because all this other shit has happened. But he released classified information that could have put the operation and personnel at risk. But, they get away with everything, because there's no accountability anymore. So watch the contempt on this woman's face.
My audience is predominantly Latino, so they kind of every day say they're fearful because a lot of people have been targeted based on their skin color, not necessarily.
That's not true. And so that has been another false narrative that has been put out there in the media that I absolutely want to throw back at you and say that is absolutely false, and don't you dare ever say that again.
Don't you dare to ever say that again? This fucking moron, this fucking ditz. I mean, these are people who are not mentally qualified to do these jobs. And they're all lying pieces of shit, but these guys are also really stupid Trumpers. Them being targeted because they look Hispanic has got to be a thing. It's silly to say anything else, right? Because we're not talking about fucking Swedish people, right? We're talking about Hispanic people for the most part. And so they're targeting people, and, immigrants often look different, right? Often look like immigrants. And so, of course, that's what they're looking for. So for her to deny it, but it's the contempt they have for the media. Now, the media sucks for us in the truth community. The media's been lying to us for years. They're reporting as immature and just goofy and sucky. But on top of that shit, they've tried to cancel us and get us deplatformed and all the stuff, suppress our stuff. The media's done a lot of things personally to all of us. And I don't have this kind of contempt for the media. I mean, I mock all these people because they all suck. And Kristi Noem isn't better than the media because she has her own fucking lies, right? Trump is one of the biggest liars. But her saying, don't you dare ever say that again. Like, Jesus Christ.
Throw back at you and say that is absolutely false, and don't you dare ever say that again. We have judges out there and other individuals saying people have been targeted that way, and it's not true. Every single operation...
So it's not the media. If you have judges saying it, that's not the media.
...that we do on ICE is based on investigative work and on case work to...
See, you see what's happened here. A judge can rule, and there can be evidence, the media can report on it, and they can be doing something as unconstitutional and as ugly as targeting people based on what they profiling people, which, is a bad thing. And they can just get away with it because they say, oh, you guys are just liberal media and liberal judges. I mean, that's like, the problem with the truth community being captured by these morons. They just say whoever's against our narrative is out to get Trump or whatever. I mean, that's what Trump has tried to do with the Epstein file. That makes it like you never have any accountability. And people aren't at least a little bit guilty and ashamed that they're out there lying. Like, she has to know that they're targeting people of a certain, racial demographics, ethnic demographics. She knows. Like, they just blatantly fucking lie, right? Like, in a way that, and when they're caught, they don't even care. Like, it just doesn't matter. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the video. This is like what's happened.
Show that there is a reason and reasonable suspicion to go into an area and to talk and look at it.
So there was another guy I saw, I'm not going to find the report, but he was talking about how ICE is wearing masks. And we already saw that with those masked men going up to that Muslim woman with the head covering and just grabbing her off the street. And not really identifying themselves, wearing badges, but, and it's when men in masks come up dressed in black with black masks, and they come up and grab you, and, especially if there might be a language issue. And it's all because they say these guys don't want to be doxxed and attacked on the internet, right? Which, this guy, and they had somebody on, some expert was saying, oftentimes other law enforcement might mistake you for criminals, or if you're dressed with a mask and a criminal, and you get shot, like you get killed. The FBI and the fucking, ICE or somebody or CIA or whatever, local police are at the same place and they're not coordinated, and they see these guys dressed with masks and they start shooting at each other, like fucking, everything's falling apart, bro. So the other evidence here, that it's a train wreck. Like Trump's presidency is a fucking train wreck. He's got fucking classified information being leaked, and guys, that whole thing that happened at the Defense Department where Hegseth had to fire 4 guys, rearrange some other ones, change their jobs because they got into each other. They're all Trumpers, and they weren't fucking liberal Democrats, and they got into it to each other. So, it's like a fucking train wreck, right? Like the guys, and then all this other stuff that's happening. And across the board, the big, beautiful bill is going to be a nightmare. It hasn't even kicked in yet. Like, everything is like, and he wants to push for martial law. And when Israel's going ballistic and fucking Palestine and, the whole Russia thing, everything's falling apart. And Trump is, he just always tried to act like he's got it under control and he's above it. And, but it's clearly, he's rattled and shook by all this Epstein stuff because, this was just waiting for him. It's a fucking disaster. And they should have seen this coming because they should have known that they had this nightmare to deal with. This is a grenade that they were going to have to deal with because Trumpers wanted Epstein stuff. And then, they couldn't give it. They knew it was going to come around. And fucking I don't know if they they underestimated it or Trump didn't listen because he never does. But there's a bunch of shit. I have to comb through the stuff. I haven't even looked at it all. I just, clicked on a few of the videos. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's more every freaking day, right? So, let me wrap this one up here. I'll just be following up on it. But, Trump's imploding, and I don't know what that means. And, if they want him out, they'll get him out. But I don't see why they would do that. I think they want to blame him for more shit before they take him out, right? But he's definitely a weakened president. If that might be the only thing we'll see how that plays out. But in general, we're fucked, and it's just another indication that we're fucked, and in terms of our material system, and people will deal with that whatever way they deal with it. Mostly they won't. Mostly people will stick their head in the sand and just look for some hopium. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, Death reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.